So on Wednesday morning, Linda, Richard and I were at Caroline's house, and we were getting ready to go to conference. The three of us have been passenger princesses this week. Caroline has been amazing, thank you. She's driven us everywhere. And as I bent down to pick my bag up, to put it in the boot of Caroline's car, my back went into spasm. And I couldn't even carry a cup of tea, guys. I've been in an awful lot of pain. And these three amazing friends have shown me love, and they've shown me kindness, and they've shown me compassion, which is what I want to talk to you about this morning.
Brilliant. Very good.
Compassion is a cornerstone of our Christian faith. Yeah. It's a divine characteristic that fuels acts of kindness, mercy, and love. And I have to say that's something that I've been shown in spades this week. Baker's Evangelical Dictionary defines compassion as the human disposition that fuels acts of kindness and mercy. So compassion, therefore, is a form of love that is shown or felt when we're confronted with those who are suffering or are vulnerable. Actually, at one point, somebody walked past me this week, and they didn't mean to, but they knocked past me, and I actually thought I was going to pass out. So I've been incredibly grateful for my friends this week. Compassion, actually, is said by, although he's a Buddhist monk, the Dalai Lama is quoted as saying, "Love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive." And oh my goodness, isn't that true? And that is shown over and over again in the Bible. In Scripture, we see direct and indirect mentions of compassion woven so beautifully throughout both the Old and the New Testaments. And it illustrates its breadth and its depth. And so this morning, we're going to look at how compassion is demonstrated by Christ, how it shaped the early church, and how his ultimate sacrifice for us on the cross exemplifies compassion in its purest form. And finally, we'll conclude, because I've learned a lot in my time at Generations, we're going to conclude with 3 ways to show biblical compassion. Absolutely. The Bible mentions compassion explicitly in verses like Matthew 9:36, where Jesus had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. So imagine the scene: fed up, weary crowd, men, women, and children. And those of us that are parents, we know what our kids are like, don't we, when they are tired and fed up and hungry. And the mums and the dads and all the adults there, they're worn down by the struggles of life. Some may have come to seek healing. Others were perhaps searching for hope. And others maybe were just there out of curiosity to see who this Jesus was. But Jesus, when he sees them, he's deeply moved, not just by their physical needs, but by their spiritual emptiness that has left all of them vulnerable. His compassion propels him to teach, heal, and provide direction for their lives, just like a good shepherd lovingly guiding his lost sheep. In the Bible, compassion resonates through countless acts of mercy and love. Now, when there was just 5 of us, sometimes people would say, "Would you like to come over for like Sunday lunch after church or something?" And I have to be honest, I would quite often say, "Oh, thank you. Are you sure? Because we do eat quite a lot." And sometimes people would ask me what my idea of quite a lot was, and I would say, well, every mealtime we get through a £5 bag of potatoes, and at which point you could see people thinking, right, just going to step away from that offer now. But in Matthew 14:13-21, Jesus is mourning the death of his dear friend, John the Baptist. And what he wants to do is retreat to a solitary place. But the crowds, they follow him. And actually, rather than turning them away, he sees their hunger, again, both physical and spiritual, and he acts. And he multiplies 5 loaves and 2 fish, and he feeds 5,000. Well, in the Bible we're told it's 5,000, but we're also told that's just the men. So actually, if you add on the women and the children, that's potentially, 20,000 people. And nobody left hungry. And this miracle is not merely about sustenance. It's about a profound act of compassion that addresses people's immediate needs while demonstrating the abundance of God's love. And today, it shows us God's abundant provision and the need for each of us to know him intimately, always being able to trust his ability to meet our needs, even when they seem impossible for him to fulfill. When we look at the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke 10, we find a Jewish man traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he's attacked by robbers, beaten, stripped, and left for dead. And several individuals, including a priest and a Levite, they walk past and they don't offer any assistance. And in fact, the priest and the Levite, they even cross the road, so they don't even have to go directly past him. Now, possibly they rationalised their inaction by saying it was a fear of becoming ceremoniously unclean. Maybe they were unwilling to interrupt their schedules, or maybe they were just a bit indifferent because he meant nothing to them. But then along comes the Samaritan, the person who the Jews historically despised, a member of a group viewed as outsiders and as enemies. Now the Samaritan, what does he see? He sees a man who is wounded, who needs his help. And he doesn't hesitate. He binds the man's wounds up, and he pours oil and wine, disinfect and soothe. And he even puts him on his own donkey, and he carries him to safety. And at the inn, he continues to care for the man, and he leaves money for his ongoing treatment with a promise to return and cover any additional expenses. Now, this isn't a fleeting gesture. It's sustained. It's an act of mercy, and one that requires time and effort and his own personal resources. And today, this parable teaches us that compassion transcends all boundaries. The Samaritan does not consider to think about the man's religion, his ethnicity, or his social standing. All he sees is suffering, and he acts. And this mirrors Christ's own compassion, which knows no borders. And it calls on each of us to love our neighbour, to love everyone, always through tangible acts of kindness. Throughout his ministry, Jesus demonstrated compassion in deeply personal ways. When we look at John 11, Jesus was deeply moved at Lazarus' tomb. Lazarus is not merely a follower, he's a very close friend of Jesus's. And I think his grief at Lazarus' death reveals the depth of his humanity. Yes. When Jesus arrives in Bethany, he's met by Martha, Lazarus' sister. And she blames Jesus and says, if you'd been there sooner, he would have lived. And then along came Mary, the other sister, and she expresses the same thoughts and feelings. And the sight of their heartbreak combined with the mourning of others also reduces Jesus to tears. John 10:38-45 reads, Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there is a bad odor, for he had been there 4 days. And Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you will always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. When he'd said this, Jesus called out in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. And Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." And Jesus' tears, though brief, are a testament to his empathy. It was his divine understanding of the pain that death brings human lives. Yet his compassion did not end with emotion. It propelled him to act, just like the Good Samaritan, as we've already seen did. And standing before Lazarus' tomb, he commands the stone to be rolled away, and he calls Lazarus to come out. And that miracle not only restores life to Lazarus, but it also renews hope and faith for those who witness it. But again, for us, today, here and now, it shows that Jesus has the power to change life, physically and spiritually, it highlighting Jesus' compassion and his ability to bring new life to all who believe in him. The next story I want to look at, I remember hearing this probably when I was a teenager, first of all, and I was quite upset at the time because I couldn't understand why it was just the woman who was being punished. So I want to look at John 8, 1 to 11. And I want to retell it, but from a different perspective. I was dragged into the temple courtyard, sure that my life was about to end. My heart was pounding, and fear was causing me to sweat and tremble as the mob of angry people surrounded me. Their judgment of me was loud and aggressive. They were hurling accusations that pierced through my shame. They were shouting loudly, "Teacher, this woman was caught in an act of adultery. In the law, Moses commands us to stone such women. Now what do you say?" They sneered. I knew my guilt, but their words stung. I felt like a pawn for their schemes, because even in the chaos, I could sense that they were testing him. They were challenging this man's authority and his wisdom. I looked up at the man my accusers were calling teacher, and he stood there calm and peaceful, his face showing neither disgust or outrage. And instead of answering them, he crouched down and he began to write in the dust. My breath caught in my throat. Was this the moment that my life would end? Was this the final judgment on me? But the man stood back up, and with calm authority, he silenced the crowd by saying, "Let any of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." The words hung in the air. With my body shaking, I looked at the men who had accused me, the stones tight in their fists, and one by one they hesitated, lowering their arms and dropping the stones. Slowly they began to turn and walk away, the courtyard growing quieter with every retreating step. I could hardly stand, never mind move. I couldn't think. My fear, my shame intertwined as the crowd disappeared. And then it was just us, the teacher and I. He looked at me. He truly looked at me. And then he spoke. His voice was gentle and compassionate. "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," I said. And then the words came that I never thought I would hear, words that lifted the burden I had carried and filled the emptiness that was in me. "Then neither do I condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin." With tears streaming down my face, I felt the weight of forgiveness wash over me. He did not ignore my sin. He acknowledged it, but he offered me something greater. He offered me a chance to change and a chance to live differently. And I walked away carrying the memory of his grace and the hope of a new beginning. Wow. What Jesus did there was offer that woman a chance of redemption. And it shows all of us, doesn't it, that compassion will always seek restoration and not judgment. And this story emphasizes the importance of compassion rather than condemnation. In modern times, compassion continues to inspire extraordinary acts of kindness. And whilst there are many, many that I could have looked at, I just want to mention quickly Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Her whole work, her whole life was spent amongst the poorest of the poor in India. And that is a real modern testament, I think, to biblical compassion. She once said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can all do small things with great love." Yeah. Her willingness to touch the untouchables, care for the dying, and love the forgotten reflects Christ's compassion in every single way. Her humility and her dedication remind us that compassion is not about what we have, it's about what we're willing to give, excuse me, to alleviate somebody else's suffering. Thank you. The early church was a living embodiment of compassion. Acts 32 to 35 describes a community of believers who were one in heart and mind. They shared their possessions and they ensured that no one among them was ever in need. Imagine how rich their fellowship was. They shared their meals, they shared their resources, and they prayed for one another all the time. They prayed for the sick and they prayed for the suffering. And again, compassion was not merely an idea there, it was a lifestyle, and it bound the church together and it testified Christ's love. Yeah. And this spirit echoes Jesus' teachings and his actions. His disciples, having witnessed his compassion firsthand, they carried it forward. They fed the hungry, they cared for widows, they looked after orphans, and they healed the sick. Compassion became the heartbeat of early Christian community, a testament to the transformative power of God's love. And of course, the ultimate act of compassion that Jesus gave for us was his sacrifice on the cross. In Luke 23 to 24, when he was in excruciating pain, Jesus prays, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And there he is, nailed to the cross. He's battered, he's bruised, and his body and his spirit are weighed down by the sins of humanity, and he looks out. Some people are mocking and jeering him. Some are just indifferent. They're just there because it just fancy a day out. And a few at the front, they're actually grieving. And he chose mercy. He intercedes on behalf of those who placed him there, offering forgiveness rather than condemnation. Even in his final moments, Jesus extended mercy. His death was not merely an act of love, but a profound act of compassion, offering salvation to all who believe. The cross reminds us that compassion often requires sacrifice. It's not always convenient, it's not always easy, and it may cost us personally. Yet through Christ's example, we see the rewards: eternal life, restored relationships, and God's glory, and they will always far outweigh any costs that we may have to face. We've spent a little bit of time looking at God's compassion, and we're called to embody it in our daily lives. So I just want to look really quickly at 3 ways that we can show biblical compassion. So the first one is extend compassion to others. Look for opportunities to serve those who might be in need. Now, it may be that you have to visit people who are ill or feed the hungry, but sometimes just be prepared to listen to somebody who is hurting. Those small acts of kindness embody God's love. Remember the Samaritan. Compassion is about action, not just emotion. Number 2, cultivate compassion within your community. I'm not just talking about church here, I'm talking at home or at work or wherever you go regularly. Like the early church, prioritize collective care. Share your resources, support one another, and create spaces where people feel valued and loved. Yeah. Compassion can transform communities. It can break down barriers and it can foster unity. And the third one, guys, is actually show a bit of compassion to yourselves. We sometimes find it so easy, don't we, to be hard on ourselves, and we forget that we deserve to give ourselves the same kindness and understanding and acceptance that we would offer a friend. We're not supposed to stand here. We're not supposed to stand in our past, in our shoulda, woulda, couldas. We're called to walk forward. We are saved Christians. We are not supposed to stay there. We are supposed to walk there. And just as we are able and willing and want to help others, do it for yourselves. Proverbs 11:17 tells us, a man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurts himself. So give yourselves the renewal time that Jesus gave himself. A bit of compassion and a bit of kindness to oneself brings positive outcomes. So in conclusion, remember, extend compassion to others, cultivate compassion in your community, show a little bit to yourselves. But remember, compassion is more than a feeling. It's a divine mandate, a call to embody God's love in a broken world. From Christ's personal acts of mercy to his ultimate sacrifice on the cross, we see that compassion is transformative, sacrificial, and life-giving. And as we leave here today, let's commit to showing biblical compassion. In doing so, we will always reflect the heart of Christ in all we do.